We have all seen those advertisements from companies like Wix and WordPress that advertise their services to be easy to use, simple, and just clicks away from creating a website. What these companies are advertising is their own content management system, or CMS. Wix and WordPress are spaces where clients can make their own websites using a drag and drop interface. For the benefits of the simple layout and intuitive process, content management systems give up a big feature of creating websites: customizability. The simplicity of a CMS, which is advertised as one of its leading points, is also its biggest drawback. So how do we create a website that is completely designed by us, where we have very little restrictions? Well, that is where web development comes into play. This is a crash course on programming a basic website. My name is Krishna, and welcome to the Den. If you have seen one of our last videos, What is Coding?, my brother Vishnu talks about the steep learning curve for programming. Most beginner programmers start learning how to code with web development because there are basically no prerequisites to the process, except for the ones shown in the last video, prerequisites to coding. This video will teach you everything there is to learn about web development, all the ideas, sections, languages, and syntax, making no assumptions about your knowledge or skill. Web development is the creation and maintenance of a website. It is everything that happens behind the scenes of a site to make sure that the user has a flawless yet enjoyable experience. In order to make these sites look great, web developers, or the people who make these websites, use programming languages. In our previous video, my brother explained what programming languages are and why the distinction between them is so important. I will be brief here, but if you do not understand the concept of a programming language, please click the link below to our previous videos. Programming languages are just like any other languages, but instead of talking with other people, you're communicating with the computer. Web development has many components, but most importantly, it has three main sections. The text on the website and the actual contents of the website are the first section. Styling the website comes next. And then we have the functionality of the website itself. If we take Amazon as an example, the contents of the website are the products themselves and their descriptions. Their styling is their logo, the colors, the images, and the star ratings. The functionality of Amazon is the buy button that allows you to buy items online and directs you to the Your Cart page. If you're confused, think about web development being split into two parts: the front end, or the user side, and the back end, or the server side. The front end consists of all the text, pictures, and styling of the website. Basically anything that the user can see, hence the user side. The back end is anything that the user can't see, but is adding functionality to the website behind the scenes, in the server. Now that we know about the different components of developing a website, let's get into the programming languages necessary to make these components. The languages that we will be using for front-end web development are HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets. The back-end language we will use for our site will be JavaScript. In other words, HTML controls the text and pictures on our website. The CSS will add color and style to our website. The JavaScript actually programs the website to function. Like anything else, analogies will help us understand this even more. Think about building a website like building a house. The HTML is the wooden frame of the house, or the base on which to build it on. CSS will be the paint of the house, the pictures on the walls, tiles, and the lawn. The JavaScript is the plumbing, furnace, air conditioning, and all other utilities that work to keep the house functional. Make sense? So in order to create a website, all three of these basic languages have to work together. To bind the three languages, we need a text editor. A text editor is a software that allows us to type our code and then run it. If you prefer online text editors, there are multiple great options, especially for beginners. REPL.it and CodePen.io are both great text editors that are online for you to type, run, and store your code. However, most programmers use downloaded text editors so that you can work on the go and can code large projects. The best text editors for web development are Brackets and Visual Studio Code. Personally, I love using Visual Studio Code because it has features and extensions which makes it easier to program with all languages, including HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I highly recommend using Visual Studio Code if you're following along with me. In order to download VS Code, go to code.visualstudio.com. Now that we have a text editor downloaded, let's set it up. When you open up Visual Studio Code, on the sidebar here, you can see the Extensions button. When you click on the Extensions button, you see Search Extensions in. This is the search bar. In the search bar, we will type whatever extension that we need. For this tutorial, we need 2 extensions. The first extension is called Live Server. When you click enter, the very first one that pops up, Live Server by Ritlik Day, we can just click on it and then click install. Pretty much what Live Server does is it helps you automatically run your code so that you can see it on a browser window, such as Chrome or Safari. The second extension that we need is called HTML CSS support. So the very first one that comes here by ECMEL, we can click on it and we can click install. And what this does is helps you be more efficient with your code. If you watched our last video, you might know that extensions help make your code more efficient. This is one of those such extensions. As I explained before, HTML is like the basework for a website. For example, in Amazon, all of the names of the products, the price, and the description would be the HTML. When typing the HTML programs into the text editor, we use something called tags. HTML tags look like a greater than sign right after a less than sign. But like many other things, it is not exactly what the human eye perceives it as. In fact, it has nothing to do with math. All the tags show is what type of text you want the browser window to display. Like when you want to type a paragraph, you would make a paragraph tag, better known as a P tag. It looks like a less than sign and then a P ending up with a greater than sign. Then you type whatever you want in the paragraph section and end it with the same P tag that we put in the beginning, except when you end the tag, you have to add a / before the P. The slash is just letting the computer know that you are done with the paragraph. But there are many more types of tags, like H1 tags or heading 1 tags. An H1 tag means it should be as large as a main heading. Like this, there are 6 heading tags that go from H1 to H6, H6 of course being the smallest size. You could also style the text with CSS, but that comes later on in the video. First, let's try this out in VS Code. Before starting, we have to create a folder from which we have to open up in VS Code. So we can click New Folder, and we can name this folder whatever we want. I'm going to rename it to Test. Okay, and then let's go to our VS Code file. We can click Open Folder, and then in Desktop, we can click on Test, and then Open. And here we have it. We are in a folder called Test. Now that we have a folder called Test opened up in VS Code, we can create a new file. This file is going to be an HTML file, so we can call it anything we want and then .html. I'm going to call mine test.html. Now we have to type in a boilerplate. This is a base piece of code that helps VS Code know that you are typing in HTML. Because of the extension that we downloaded earlier, the HTML CSS support extension, we can easily do this instead of typing up all the code. Because of that extension, all we have to do is type exclamation point and then tab. And when we click tab, all of this code pops up. Now to type our code, we can click inside the body tag. In the body tag, we can use the tags that we learned earlier. First, we're going to start with the h1 tag. You guys might remember that h1 tag is the largest heading tag you can do in HTML. And because of the extension that we downloaded earlier, called the HTML CSS support, all we need to do now is type in h1 and then tab. And there we have it. It's our h1 tag. Inside of the h1 tag, we can type in whatever we want, like hello world. And now, because of the other extension that we downloaded, Live Server, we can see our work in a browser window. So we can open it with Live Server, and here it is. This is the size of the h1 tag. Now let's do the same thing with the h6 tag, the smallest tag there is. So all we need to do is type in h6 and then tab. And we can type in hello world. And when we see it here, we can see that it automatically reloaded, and this is the smallest heading size there is. While we're at it, let's work on the paragraph tag. So on a new line, we can type in P and then tab, and that is the P tag, or the paragraph tag. And we can put my name is Krishna. And we can see here, my name is Krishna. That is the size of the paragraph tag. The last topic that we will cover for HTML in this video are divs, IDs, and classes. All of these components of HTML pretty much help organize your code into sections. The div tag stands for division, and the ID and class groups the text of a web page into different groups. For example, the heading and the subtitle could be a class called main, and the paragraph is a class called base. So now let's try it out in our text editor. When we classify our text using classes or IDs, we have to put them inside of the tags. So we can put h1 and then space, and then let's say we want the h1 to have a class. We can type in class, and because of the HTML CSS support extension that we downloaded earlier, we can just type return or enter, and it gives us the equal sign and the quotation marks for us. Inside of the quotation marks, we can type in the name of the class. We can choose anything. For example, it can be main. And now for the h6, we can add, let's say, an ID, enter or return, and we can name this ID base. And when we go here, we can see it doesn't really make a difference, but it will once we use CSS. So let's get right to it. Now let's jump into CSS. Remember, this web developing language helps style the text from the HTML. All the code in CSS is formatted in a way where you first type in what you are styling, like an h1 or a paragraph. Then you add a set of curly brackets or mustache brackets. Inside the brackets, you add whatever code you need. You can also style a class and an ID. A class is represented by a dot, and then the name of the class comes right after it. An ID is represented by a £sign or a hashtag, and the name of the ID comes after it. The difference between a class and an ID is that an ID can only be used once throughout your whole entire project, but a class can be used as many times as you want. So let's style our HTML using CSS. Now for the CSS, let's create a CSS file inside of the test folder. So like with the test.html, you have to click on the new file button, you can click it, and then we can name it whatever we want. We can name it test.html. And then because we're programming in the language called CSS, you have to type .css. There we go. In the test.css, we want to style the H1 over here, the one that says hello world. So let's go back to our test.css. And like I said earlier, in CSS, you first write what you want to style. We want to style the H1. So we can type in H1 space, and then we have to put the mustache brackets. So like that, and then put a space between them. And in this line, we want to change the color. And this is quite simple actually. All we need to do is type in color, and then a colon, and then space, and then whatever color we want. Let's say I want red. And now if we test it out, we can see it's not working. This is because back in the HTML, we have to link this HTML to this CSS. So right underneath this meta tag over here, we can put a link tag. So link and then enter. So it says link rel equals style sheet. That stands for cascading style sheets, or CSS. And the href, we would put /, which means it's a link that's inside of the file, and test.css. We can see it popped up already. There we go. And now if we see it, it actually works. It's a red H1 that says hello world. Like I said before, we can rename these H1 tags as a class. So because our H1 is in a class called main, we can change this H1 to dot, which represents class, and main. And if we do this, it gives us the same result. Now let's add some background color. We will be adding the background color to the H6 over here. So we can start off by either typing in H6, or we can type in hashtag, which stands for ID, and base. You can choose either one because you know both of them. And then the mustache brackets, enter, and inside of here, just like the color, we can add background color. It's popped up over here, and we can choose any color that we want. I am going to choose blue, and then the semicolon. And if we see here, we can see that the blue is the background, but we can barely see the black. So we can change the font size. We can change the font size to any amount of pixels. I am going to make it 50 pixels. Pixels are the tiny dots on the screen that make up the screen. So if we change this to 50 pixels, it enlarges to 50 pixels. Let's also make the color a bit more dark. So we can change the color, not the background color, the plain color, to, let's say, purple. And here we have purple on blue. Now let's center our text. Because this is the dot main, this deserves to be centered. So after the color, we can add text align. You can see it's the second one over here. And we can click center, and then the semicolon. We can see it's centered over here. There are two more things that we need to talk about in CSS. The first thing we're going to talk about is font family, and the second thing we're going to talk about is line height. So let's start off with font family. You have to start off by opening a new Chrome tab, and then fonts.google.com. Enter. And here we can either search a font, or we can choose one from the ones they've given us. I really like Red Rose, so we can click on this, and we can choose like the light, the regular, or the bold. I really like the regular, so we can select the style, and not the review, but click on embed. This is the code, and link, this would be for the HTML, and @import is for the CSS. That's why they put style. So we don't need to copy paste the style part, we just need to copy paste what's inside. So Command C, and we can go back to our code, and then at the very top we can add Command V. So now we have this style. And let's say I want to change the style of the paragraph tag. So we can choose P, mustache brackets, enter, and then inside we can choose font family, it popped up over here, and we can choose, because we've imported it, red rose. There we have it. And if we go to our document, we can see that it has changed to red rose. Now let's work on line height, the last component that we'll learn in this tutorial for CSS. So we can style the body if we want everything to have a line height. This is because in the test.html, we put all of our code inside of the body tags. So we can go back to the test.css, body, and then the mustache brackets. And then inside of them, we can type in line height, the third one that pops up over here. And we can choose whatever we want. I'm gonna choose 100 pixels. We can see everything just got a lot more spaced out. If we want a bigger visual, we can change this to 1,000 pixels, and it's so wide that it's almost off screen. This doesn't look so good, so let's change it back to 100 pixels. That's better. The last web developing language that we will cover in this video is JavaScript. JavaScript is the behind-the-scenes part of a site, or the language that keeps the website functional. JavaScript allows us to create things like usernames and passwords for our website, and alert the user with pop-ups. So for the JavaScript in this tutorial, we're going to be focusing on prompts. So first, let's open up a file called test.js for JavaScript, obviously. Enter. We have a new file, and the syntax for a prompt is pretty easy. It's just prompt, and then a set of parentheses. Inside of the parentheses, single quotes, and inside of the quotes, we can type in whatever we want. How are you doing? Over here. All right, and we can see over here, it's supposed to pop up like a box. That did not happen. That is because we have to link the test.js to the test.html, like we did with the CSS. Except for the HTML, we have to put it inside of the body. So inside of the body, because this is JavaScript, it's a script language, we can type in script, and then not the first one, but the second one, the one that says script:source, because we want to link it through a source. The source is going to be our JavaScript, so test.js. And now if we reload it, how are you doing? We can type in good, okay, and then it brings you to the site. Now that we know the basics of the 3 main web developing websites, let's utilize them by creating a website. Your website can be about whatever you want, but just make sure that you are following along. My website will be about different flavors of ice cream. So let's do this. So let's make our website. We can start off by creating a file. This was the file we used all along, the test file. So we can create a new folder. We can call this, we can rename it to ice cream website. So ice cream _website. Enter. Okay, and then we can go to VS Code, new window, and we can get a fresh start by opening a folder. The folder is going to be called Ice Cream Website. We can open it. Voila! So we can start off by making our files inside of this folder. So our first one is going to be index.html. Our CSS file is going to be style.css. And our JavaScript is going to be called script.javascript. So let's start off by going to the HTML, and we can enter that boilerplate that we learned earlier. So it's Shift and 1 for the exclamation point, and then tab. And inside of the body here, first let's rename the title to, let's say, Ice Cream Website. So inside of the body, we can put our different sections. The first section is going to be the heading called Flavors of Ice Cream. So obviously this should be the largest size. So we can put H1 tab, and then inside of the H1 we can have flavors of ice cream. There we go. And then after the H1 we can put our first section, which is going to be chocolate. So this can be an H3, types of chocolate ice cream. And inside of the chocolate, we can have our different chocolate ice creams. So our first chocolate ice cream is going to be triple fudge. We can put this inside a P tag. Triple fudge. Another P tag, this can be just plain chocolate. And then the last P tag can be chocolate fudge brownie. Alright, and let's actually give all of these classes. So this can be a class of main. This can be a class of subheading. And the paragraphs can all be a class of flavors. Flavors, and for the last one, we can do flavors. Okay, let's add 2 more subheadings. So all we need to do is copy paste from the H3 to the last P tag, Command C or Control C, enter, and Command V. There we go. And then Command V one more time. Get them all lined up. Okay, let's put a space in between them so that we don't get confused about which part is which. So let's rename this subheading to vanilla and this subheading to fruit. Alright, and then in here we can put whatever we want. For vanilla, I'm going to put French vanilla. And then over here, vanilla chocolate swirl. And then vanilla strawberry. Alright, and then for the fruit, we can also put whatever we want. I'm going to put strawberry chocolate. For this one over here, we can put passion fruit. And for this last one over here, we can add blueberry. Alright, now let's run this, our HTML code with live server. So open with live server. Okay, this looks kind of okay, but the heading really needs to stand out more, so we can use our U tag or underline tag. So we can go back to our code, and over here, right after this H1, we can put the less than sign, U, and then the greater than sign. It automatically generates the ending U tag, so we can take that off and then put it right at the end. So this should be underlined when we run it, and we have it underlined. Now let's style our website using CSS. So we can go to style.css, and inside of here, we can type in our CSS code. So first, let's style the H1, the one that says main. So we can choose either to type in H1 or .main, and use our mustache brackets. And then inside, we can type in text align center, because we want to center it. Now if we look, it's not happening, because remember, we have to link the CSS to the HTML. So let's do that. Over here, underneath this meta tag, we can have a link tag, if you guys remember. And it's a style sheet, and it goes to /style.css. Okay, and now if we look, it is centered. Now we can add more of our styling. We can make the color, say red, and we can make the background color or blue violet. Okay, that looks beautiful. And now let's also center the chocolate, the vanilla, and the fruit. So we can go to style.css, and instead of typing each one, the H3, 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 we can just use our class of subheading to make everything much easier. So we can put dot subheading, the mustache brackets, and then inside we can put text align center, and we can change the color to whatever we want. Color, we can put blue, and for the background, we can put background color, we can put aquamarine. Okay, and that is very bright. Now let's style the mini headings inside of the subheading. So we can change each of these colors. So let's do it by first making all of the classes different from each other. So the paragraph classes in the chocolate can be flavors-c because it's flavors in the subheading of chocolate. And same thing for vanilla, so it will be -v. And this last one, obviously, fruit, will be -f. Okay, we can go to our style.css and we can style specifically the subheadings in chocolate. So flavors, and then C, because it's in chocolate, the curly brackets, and then inside of them we can change the color to, let's say, brown, because that's the color of chocolate. We can see over here just the ones inside of chocolate, the flavors became brown. We can do the same for vanilla and the fruits. So let's go and do dot flavors -v this time, and then the curly brackets, and then inside of the curly brackets we can have color and then wheat. Okay, and obviously it's going to be really hard to see, so let's change the background. Make the background color black. Okay, so for the fruit, let's change it even more. Let's make each paragraph a different color, because fruits are obviously different colors. So the first one can be -f for fruit, and then -sc for strawberry chocolate. Same thing over here, -p, and for the last one, -b. Okay, and then in the style.css, we can put dot flavors -f -sc, and this is the strawberry chocolate. So we can have color equal, let's say, red for strawberries, but the background color be brown for the chocolate. Alright, we can see just that part changed. Alright, let's change all of them like that. So dot flavors -f -p for passion fruit, and let's do color purple. Okay, and the last one can be dot flavors, and our last dot flavors was blueberry, so -f-b. There we go, and now it looks blue. So now let's add the JavaScript to our website. So we can go to our code, script.js, and over here, if you guys remember, we have our prompt code. So prompt, and then the parentheses, and then the quotation marks, and then inside of the quotation marks we can put whatever we want. I'm gonna put, do you like ice cream? Question mark. Alright, and obviously it's not going to work because we didn't link it to the HTML. So let's do that. In the index.html, inside of the body, let's add script source, and then we can link the source to script.js. Script.js. Okay, and over here, do you like ice cream? Yes, I do. Okay, and it brings you to the site. Congratulations on making your first website. I hope that this was a great learning experience for beginners and a helpful refresher for experienced programmers. If you're confused about anything, please comment down below, and we would be happy to help. Thank you for watching.